Imagine spraying your own wrist, waiting about 2 seconds, and thinking, I can't smell anything. This bottle must be faulty. Someone standing near you leans in. It's, if anything, slightly too strong. You genuinely can't smell your own perfume, while they can smell it from across the room. So you spray it again, a second time, right on top of the first. Now they can really smell it, from further away than you'd expect. You still can't. Nothing would be wrong with the bottle. Something very normal, very universal would be happening to your nose. Welcome to the Scent Room with Sufian. By the end of today, you're going to understand exactly why this happens to absolutely everyone, including me, including every perfumer I've ever met, and why it's not a flaw in your nose at all. It's actually a feature, doing exactly what it evolved to do. And I'm going to show you what genuinely helps, because the most common advice out there for dealing with it doesn't actually work. Let's get into it. There's a real name for what would be happening in a moment like that. Olfactory fatigue, sometimes called olfactory adaptation, or just nose blindness in plain English. And here's the honest version of what's happening. Because there are actually two separate things going on at once, working together. The first happens right at the source, in the receptor cells inside your nose. When you're exposed to the same smell continuously, those receptors genuinely start sending a weaker signal over time. Not because they're broken, because that's their job. The second happens further up in the brain itself. Once a smell has been present for a while, and nothing bad has happened because of it, your brain quietly reclassifies it as unimportant and starts turning the volume down on your conscious awareness of it. This one's called habituation, and it's a cognitive process, not just a physical one. Both of these are working on you at the same time, every single time you wear perfume, which is exactly why someone drenched in their own fragrance can genuinely not smell a thing, while someone nearby picks it up instantly the moment they walk in. Their nose has been marinating in it since they left the house that morning. The other person's hasn't. And it's worth being clear about how fast this actually happened, because it's quicker than most people assume. Meaningful adaptation to a constant smell can set in within just a few minutes of steady exposure, not hours. So by the time you've been wearing something for even half a morning, your ability to consciously notice it has already dropped considerably, even though the fragrance itself on your skin hasn't gone anywhere. Here's the part people find genuinely surprising too. This effect hits your own signature scent harder than almost anything else you'll ever wear. Not because there's anything different about the chemistry, because if you wear the same fragrance regularly, you're never really giving your nose a clean break from it. Trace amounts linger in your coat, your scarf, your car, the inside of your handbag. You're topping up your own exposure constantly without even spraying, which means your baseline adaptation to that particular scent runs deeper than it does to something you've only worn once or twice. It's part of why long-term signature scent wearers are often the very worst judges of how strong they actually smell to everyone else. Think about walking into a restaurant. The first 10 seconds, the smell of food hits you properly, sometimes almost overwhelming. Give it 20 minutes, and you've stopped noticing it entirely, even though the kitchen hasn't changed a single thing. Then you step outside for some air and walk back in, and there it is again, just as strong as the first time. Nothing about the restaurant changed. Your nose simply reset the moment the exposure broke. Now, why would your body even do this? It sounds almost like a design flaw, until you think about it properly. Imagine if your brain gave you every single smell in your environment, full, constant attention forever, at the same volume it arrived with. You'd be completely overwhelmed within minutes, unable to function, unable to notice anything actually new or important happening around you. Nose blindness is your brain doing you a genuine favor, filtering out the constant familiar background so it can stay alert for something that's actually changed. A gas leak, smoke, spoiled food. The things that genuinely matter get through. the wallpaper of smells you're already used to gets quietly muted. This isn't unique to humans either, and honestly, the logic makes even more sense once you look at the rest of the animal kingdom. A creature that relies on smell to survive can't afford to be constantly distracted by its own scent, or the familiar smell of its own den, its own pack, its own territory. Adaptation lets it filter all of that out automatically and stay alert for the one thing that's actually new: a predator, a stranger, danger. We've simply inherited the exact same wiring, just applied now to office meetings and dinner dates instead of survival. Imagine someone mortified, wondering if they've been overdoing it with their perfume for years without realizing. The honest answer would be probably a little. Yes, but not because anything's wrong with them. They simply can't hear their own signal anymore. The same way nobody can. It's genuinely common for people to top up throughout the day purely because they can't smell it on themselves by lunchtime, not realizing everyone around them still very much can. There's a genuine cost to this too, beyond the social side of it. If you're reapplying purely because you've gone nose blind, not because the fragrance has actually faded, you're going through a bottle considerably faster than you need to. Imagine burning through a bottle in 6 weeks that should have reasonably lasted 4 or 5 months, purely because your own adaptation convinced you it had disappeared. Understanding this one piece of biology can genuinely extend how long your collection lasts. It happens to professionals too, by the way. And I don't want you to think this is a beginner's problem you'll eventually grow out of. Perfumers, the people who do this for an actual living, build deliberate structure into their day, specifically to fight this. They test in short bursts. They take real breaks between sessions. Some smell coffee out of ritual and habit. Honestly, more than genuine belief, it does much. We'll come back to proper nose training later in the series, because it deserves its own full episode. But even trained professionals with decades of experience aren't immune to this. Nobody gets a special exemption. Here's where I need to correct something, because it's genuinely one of the most repeated pieces of advice in this entire industry. It's simply not true. You've probably heard that smelling coffee beans resets your nose between perfumes. Nearly every perfume counter on earth has a little jar of them sitting out for exactly that purpose. It doesn't actually work, at least not the way people think. There's real research on this. A psychologist named Alexis Grosovsky at Beloit College tested it directly, comparing coffee beans against plain air as a way of restoring people's sensitivity between fragrance samples, and found that coffee didn't outperform simply smelling nothing at all. Not slightly better, no meaningful difference. So why does the jar of coffee beans persist at nearly every counter in the industry? What's actually happening when people feel like it worked is something called a contrast effect. Coffee is such a strong, different smell that switching to it makes whatever you smell next feel fresh by comparison, purely because your attention has been redirected somewhere completely different for a moment. But that's not your receptors recovering. That's just adding a third strong smell into an already confused picture, and your brain briefly perceiving relief because the input changed, not because anything actually reset underneath. So what actually works? Smell something genuinely neutral. Your own skin, the inside of your elbow, a plain piece of fabric you're wearing that hasn't been sprayed. That gives your receptors an actual break from strong stimulation, rather than throwing another loud smell at an already tired nose. It's less dramatic than a jar of coffee beans on a counter, but it's the version that's actually backed by evidence. So what do you actually do about this in real life? Day to day, a few honest habits help. First, trust a second opinion over your own nose. Once you've been wearing something for a few hours, ask someone you genuinely trust, a partner, a colleague, whoever's nearby, rather than reapplying purely because you can't smell yourself anymore. 9 times out of 10, they can still smell you perfectly well. Second, if you do want to check yourself honestly, smell a part of your clothing that wasn't sprayed. not your own wrist directly, since your wrist has been sitting in that same fatigue this entire time. Even better, step outside for a couple of minutes into genuinely fresh air, then come back and smell yourself immediately. That short break away from the constant exposure is the closest thing to a real reset you're going to get. Third, if you're testing multiple perfumes in one sitting, whether that's in a shop or just at home deciding what to wear, space them out. Smell one, then leave several minutes of properly fresh air between it and the next, rather than working through 5 bottles back to back. Your nose can genuinely only give an honest opinion on one thing at a time. And fourth, just accept that this happens to literally everyone, including professional perfumers, which is exactly why they build in deliberate breaks during long testing sessions. Stepping away, smelling something neutral, letting their receptors genuinely recover before continuing. If it happens to people who do this for a living, it was never a personal failing. There's a small human side to this worth mentioning too. Couples who live together, who share a home, a laundry basket, and a bathroom cabinet often go nose blind to each other's signature scents especially fast, for exactly the reasons we've already covered. Constant, low-level exposure, day after day. It's genuinely common for someone to say, "I can't remember what my partner's perfume even smells like anymore." Not because they've stopped paying attention, but because their nose has done exactly what it's designed to do with any constant presence in their life. It's not a metaphor for anything deeper. It's just biology quietly doing its job in the background of an ordinary marriage. Think back to that hypothetical moment we opened with. Someone convinced their bottle was broken because their own nose had quietly clocked out for the day. They weren't wrong that something had gone quiet. They were just looking in the wrong place for the reason. Next time you can't smell your own perfume by mid-afternoon, don't assume it's faded, and don't automatically reach to top it up. Ask someone nearby first. There's a very good chance it's still exactly where you left it this morning. You've just genuinely, harmlessly stopped being able to hear it. It's a strange thing to sit with, honestly. The perfume you chose specifically to be noticed is the one thing in the room your own nose is guaranteed to stop noticing first. But once you understand why, it stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like exactly what it is. A very old, very sensible piece of biology, quietly doing its job, whether you're paying attention to it or not. If you've got a question, leave it in the comments. I genuinely read every single one, and your question might become the next episode. Until next time, stay unforgettable.